Today I'm going to talk to you about the HBX CPU-1000. It's a high-level overview webinar training session. A little bit about HBX Controls, privately owned company here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Testing started in 2002 on the first control, which was the CPU-1000. And sales started in 2005. So the biggest principle behind our controls is that it has modular expandability. So that allows you to take a small unit and make it into some larger units. The main unit can house up to 2 stages, and if you want to expand the pumping capabilities or the boiler capabilities, you would just use an expansion module. The CPU-1000 is a main unit, and when you need to get into some larger applications, we decided to have the modules to add on to the main control to expand the capabilities of the CPU-1000 and the Eco-1000 also, to get into some of the larger commercial jobs and even industrial situations. The way we connect the modules is simply by a 32-pin connector that connects easily to the side of the control or another module. Some of the features of the CPU-1000 is that it has multiple application modes. Within the control, it's a staging control, mixing, domestic hot water, dual system, and dual mixing control. And we'll get into each of these functions in a few slides. So we've talked about the modular expandability. There's no cross wiring, so everything is wired straight in. So power comes in line, neutral, ground. Pumps come out line, neutral, ground. And all of your inputs are 2-wired, so there's no cross wiring on those also. There's onboard pump sequencing, and we have extra set points built on. Domestic hot water is built onto every control. Also, we have a graphic display so we can show graphics right on the control. There's also brownout detection in there. As we found out in rural areas, the power is not as good as it is in the city, so it's in there to protect the circuitry. When you first start the control, this is what you'll see. So at this point, you will pick what control you'll need it to be. So it's either staging, mixing, domestic, dual system, or dual mixing. The A, B, C, D buttons will take you through the control for you to choose the settings and options. A is to scroll up, B is to scroll down, C is the enter button, and D is the menu or back button. One thing when we designed the control is we took a lot of feedback from many different people, and they said they wanted a lot of information on the screen. Back when the control was built, Tecmar was a main control on the market, and some of you might know that with their control you could only see one thing at a time. So what we did was we put a lot of information on the screen. Because we have a graphic display, we could show what we wanted to show on it. On the main screen you will see temperatures with targets, whether the demands are on or off, all of the set points. You can see if it's in setback mode and the time with the date. On the second system function screen, you will see what items are on or off, along with the number of cycles it has gone through. So this can help you if you've just installed a system, and let's say the boiler is reading 2,000 cycles after a few days. You may know you are short cycling that boiler somehow, so it's just a quick check to make sure all is running fine within your setup. So this is where we'll start to talk about the CPU-1000 applications. The boiler staging is a simple application with 2 boilers and a system pump, but we can go up to 14 stages of boiler on the staging application with pump sequencer, and we can also run the domestic hot water from that as well. That gets us into some really big applications, so that's 14 stages of on-off boiler, or 7 2-stage boilers, so in total of 14 stages. So with that you would need 6 expansion modules to get us to 14, and you can attach those to each other with the 32-pin connector that's included with every module. In the mixing application, we can do up to 12 boilers with this, so keep in mind that with the mixing control, it's still a boiler control also, as it does mixing with it. It has 2 reset curves, a mix down and boiler system. So in terms of TechMark controls, you would need a 262 plus a 363 to run this application, where you would just need the one CPU-1000. So we wanted to make sure we got the entire bases covered with the controls, so the end user does not have to purchase multiple controls, then wire them together. Now, the domestic hot water control is specifically designed for domestic hot water. So if the boiler water is the domestic water, the potable water, then this is the application you would use. So we have 2 boilers, 2 pumps, and then the main domestic hot water pump. The algorithms were designed especially for this application, so you wouldn't use the domestic hot water control unless you were actually running potable water through your boilers, because the algorithms are quite different than a regular staging control. In the dual system mode, it was designed for a big rental community owner here in Calgary, Boardwalk Equities. So what that does is it takes a domestic hot water control and a heating control and puts it into one system. So you can run up to 4 heating boilers and up to 2 domestic hot water boilers. You still have pump sequencer, and you still have the capabilities of 2 extra set points. So this takes 2 smaller systems and puts it into one control. The dual mixing control is just like a regular mixing control, except it can provide 3 different water temperatures at the same time. There is no pump sequencer built onto the dual mixing control. You still get 2 onboard set points, and you can stage multiple boilers, and you can do up to 10 boilers with this control. The 2 modules that we will talk about are the EXP-100 and the EXP-300 expansion modules. The EXP-100 expands the capabilities of your boilers or heat pumps depending on your application, as it has 2 extra dry contacts built into it. You can wire whatever voltage you want into it or out of the module, and the dry contacts are usually pumps. The EXP-300 is a wet contact expander. It has 2 wet contacts built onto it, and when we talk about the wet contacts, that means we have 120 volt coming out of them already. So you need to power up the EXP-300 with 120 volt, and then you can wire your pumps directly into the EXP. So this allows you to easily wire up pumps without doing a bunch of interconnections or junction boxes and other things like that. The expansion modules can also be used for extra set points. So if you wanted to run a hot tub or a pool or something that is a set point off the main control, you would add one of these modules onto the CPU-1000. So here we'll talk about the Mod 100 expansion module, and it allows us to control modulating boilers. So you don't need a resistor to change from 1 to 10 or 4 to 20. It's dip switch selectable on the back of the control that allows you to switch, as there's 3 different ways to modulate with the HBX controls. So Siri says modulate the first one all the way up to 100, bring up the second one, and then bring up the third one, and then all 3 will be at the same time. Parallel means they're going up together. But then we decided to build something that helps keep the boilers condensing as well as not cycling that lag boiler, and it's called progressive. And what it does is it brings the first boiler up to 80, then it will drop that boiler down to 40 as the second boiler rises to 40%. From there, we would move the two boilers up to 80%. Then dropping them down to 50%, then we would bring that third boiler on. After that, we'll move all three of them up together, so it's a really good way to run the modulating boilers. The Zone 500 is either a standalone control, so it can work independent of our control, or you can connect it with the other controls and have a lot more capabilities of the zone control. So you can connect this with the Eco or the CPU-1000 controls. It can control up to 4 zones, either zone pumps or zone valves. So whatever power you put in the control, say 24, 24 comes out. If you put 120 in, 120 comes out. It can be expandable up to 36 zones, although that's just an arbitrary number we didn't think anybody would surpass. It has boiler TT contacts, so if any of the zones call, there's a TT enable, so you can use it for a boiler to run a system pump, or if you were running valves. It has zone post-purge pump or valve control, so 24 VAC power comes out for the thermostats, and you can also have domestic hot water priority. But when you hook this up to the controls, you don't need to cross wire anything from the zone control to the 1000 control. It's dip switch selectable in the back, whether you want high temp demand or a low temp demand zone. So this will fire the demand on the control when the zone either calls for heating or cooling. In warm weather shutdown, it will send a signal from the 1000 control to the zone control to shut off the zones. So if the thermostat is calling and the control is in warm weather shutdown, it won't turn on the pump, which gives you a lot better efficiency. This slide shows the connections of the control. So 5 amp contacts for each of them, whether it's pumps or valves, and we have the TT for the extra contact. It's dip switch selectable in the back, so you would pick your post-purchase priorities. So the one thing about the Zone 500 is that you can have different priority options. So you can have a regular domestic hot water priority where Zone 1 prioritizes over all of the other zones, even if there's more than one connected together. Or you can have Zone 1 and 2 priority over Zone 3 and 4. Or you can have one module prioritize over another if you have 2 different zones connected. Now you don't have to do a bunch of interlocking with relays where you can run the priority sequence from the Zone 500. This is a comparison chart that shows us the Tecmar product line along with the HBX equivalent product line. So one thing to keep in mind that we are cost competitive with the Tecmar line, and a lot of times our controls are below the cost of the Tecmar controls. So for example, this shows us that the 262 is one CPU-1000 control, and the 263 is one CPU-1000 and one Mod 100, and so on down the list. HBX developed a remote communication software for any of our 1000 series controls where you can log in remotely to view what's going on with your system. The screen displays all current settings and allows you to change any values if you needed, and you can do data logging and see some graphing if you want to. It's a very good tool for contractors who may have jobs that are far away and have a service call from a homeowner. They can see what's going on with the system and do an initial assessment from their computer. So thank you for your time in viewing the HBX CPU-1000 overview. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact us. You can call us or send us an email. We do have technical support in-house, so feel free to call us anytime you need us. Thanks a lot.